Dr. Neal Barnard.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. I have a talk that I want to give, but before I do that, I want to let you know about something that isn't in my talk. And that is, last Sunday I was in Chicago for the American Medical Association meeting. And the American Medical Association this week approved 2 resolutions. The first resolution says hospitals should serve plant-based meals to patients so that you had your heart attack and you don't wake up to bacon and eggs. They should have plant-based meals. And that hospitals should not be serving bacon, sausage, ham, hot dogs, any of those processed meats to anybody. And that's now official AMA policy. Secondly, they also said, the AMA also passed a resolution that if you're economically disadvantaged and you're taking advantage of the SNAP program, it's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the food stamps, they said we've got to improve that too. Because right now, what is it? Retailers get paid for stocking meat, cheese, candy, energy drinks, and the retailers should be stocking healthy foods, and plant foods have to be right up front. So anyway, a lot of times people will think, oh, the world will never change, doctors won't change, whatever. Things do change. Things are changing. Remember, a generation ago, you go into a health food store, it was like they were playing folk music. It was dark. The cashier was named Sunshine, wearing tie-dye. Now you go into health food stores, they're huge, they're big, people are buying stuff. So yes, things are moving along, we are winning. Yes, thank you. The second thing I want to mention is Sue Ellen Redding are here. Where's Sue Ellen? Are you here somewhere? Sue Ellen is a Food for Life instructor. She's still working, just like a Food for Life instructor. Anyway, if you would like to work with an instructor on a regular basis, Sue Ellen is here. She came out and got trained with us, and she would love to work with you. So with that, I want to go into a research study that got started at the University of Michigan, 384 people. And they asked them this question, which foods give you problems? And when I say problems, I mean you couldn't cut down. You're losing control. You're eating too much. And number 5 was ice cream. The number 4 problem food was cookies. Number 3 was chips. Number 2 was chocolate. And number 1 was pizza. And I'm going to argue it's not the sun-dried tomatoes. It's not the olives. It's not even the crust that makes pizza addictive, is it? There's something about cheese. People love cheese, but you know what? It doesn't love you back, I gotta say. Let's talk about cheese. Anybody ever have a cheese thing? Anybody ever think, I could be vegan except for cheese? You know, it smells like old socks. Why do we get hooked on this stuff? Okay. If you ask people, what is it that causes weight problems, what are they going to say? They're going to say it's soda. Kids are having too much sugar, right? That's what people say. I'm going to put a big question mark on that, and here's why. I want to show you some government statistics. Can you see that? Can you see that? Sugar consumption went up until about 1999, and that was the year when bottled water took over so much of the market that soda consumption fell, and sweeteners in general have been falling. Sugar's falling, everything's falling. And so for about almost 20 years ago, sugar started to go into decline, but there's cheese. And there is obesity. So the next time somebody says to you, sugar, now sugar is, don't get me wrong, not health food. But if that's the only thing that we're going to do to try to slim down, good luck. Okay, let me show you. Where are the calories? This is going to be on the test. A gram of sugar has 4 calories. A gram of fat has 9 calories, okay? Gram of sugar has 4. Gram of fat, 9. Okay, so why do I care? The leanest beef is about 29% fat. The leanest chicken is about 23, not much lower. That's why when a person switches to chicken, they don't lose any weight. Fish vary. Some are lower, some are higher. But broccoli and beans and rice and sweet potatoes are really low in fat. Okay, where's cheese? Is it more like a bean? Is it like a beef? Okay. Typical cheeses are 70% fat as a percentage of its calories. Okay. Now there is Coke Zero, so you can actually have something sweet with no calories at all, but there is no Cheddar Zero. Sorry, doesn't exist. Okay, so the other thing is beans have fiber, and vegetables have fiber, and fiber has effectively no calories. So if you're following a plant-based diet, everything you eat has fiber, and it fills you up, and you think, gee, I've eaten a lot, I'm full, I'm stopping. But the truth is you're actually eating less than you would if you weren't eating high-fiber foods. Okay, so if you look at fiber, beans have about 5 grams and a half a cup, and broccoli has 5 in a cup. And you see fiber in a lot of these foods, but cheese is not a plant. It doesn't have any fiber at all, okay? So, one other thing. Cheese has a surprising amount of sodium in it. And why do I care about sodium? Is sodium a problem? Why? Okay, it's going to raise my blood pressure. Anything else? Water weight. If you're on a high sodium diet, you can accumulate 2-3 pounds of just blobby water weight that makes you feel crummy. So an orange has 1 milligram of sodium, and an apple has 2, and brown rice has 20, and a potato has 13, and potato chips have 330. And so we'll tell our friends and our patients, don't eat potato chips, that's not healthy. But cheddar has 350, and Edam has 500, and Velveeta has 800 milligrams of sodium. I'm talking about 1 2-ounce serving. Am I cheering you up? Okay, so in the Adventist Health Study, number 2, researchers looked at Seventh-day Adventists. And the reason that they look at Adventists is, as you probably know, the church teachings say you should not smoke, and don't smoke, don't drink, avoid caffeine, but also don't eat meat. And almost all Adventists are pretty good with the first 3 of those. Not smoking, not drinking, avoiding caffeine, but some eat meat and some don't. And so that sets up this very good natural experiment. Almost 61,000 Adventists were studied, and they were looked at the groups, at the diets that they followed. And can you see that? What we're looking at is body mass index. Is that familiar? BMI. BMI is your weight, but it's adjusted for how tall you are. And a healthy BMI is below about 25. So the red bar is non-vegetarians, meat eaters. And their BMI is 28.8, not in the healthy range. And the next group are what are called semi-vegetarians. These are people who eat meat less than once per week. Very moderate. And they're slimmer, but not by a lot. And then the third group, pesco is? Okay, so no meat at all except for fish. They're a little bit slimmer. And then lacto-ovo-vegetarian. Lacto meaning milk, dairy products. Ovo, eggs. Okay, a little bit skinnier. And then out on the right, I have to tell my patients that a vegan is not a person from the planet Vegas. A vegan diet is no animal products at all. And if you look at that, they are not only the skinniest group, but they're the only group that is in the middle of the healthy weight range. Okay, so I'm going to argue that if you compare these two, the lacto-ovos and the vegans, that's a difference of almost 15 pounds. And I'm going to say that the difference really is cheese. That's the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan. Okay, so what is cheese anyway? Let's go over to Teresa, Wisconsin, to Widmer's Dairy. And early in the morning, did I say that wrong? How do you pronounce it? Get out of here. Theresa? So no wonder they stopped taking my calls. All right. So who was Theresa? All right. Well, very good. Anyway, so I actually went there and took these pictures. And early in the morning, they will be pouring milk into this little wading pool. And then bacteria are added. What do? They ferment the lactose sugar. And then they add rennet, which coagulates it, makes it solid. And what is rennet? Rennet is an enzyme. It comes from the fourth stomach of a newly slaughtered calf, which is what they do here. But actually, at almost all dairies, they don't do that anymore. What they do is they use genetically engineered enzymes, rennet. They don't write that on the package, but that's what it is. Okay, so then they drain the whey. The whey goes out. The whey is the liquidy part, and you're left with a solid cheese. And then you put salt on top because the salt will not only flavor it, but it stops the bacteria from continuing to ferment and ferment and ferment. So what have I done? I've increased the calories as I turn milk into cheese, and the protein is increasing, and the cholesterol is going up, and so is the fat, and so is the sodium. So that's what turning milk into cheese will do. So it raises the question, can you get hooked on this stuff? You ever know anybody who felt, I just can't live without cheese? Well, part of it is salt. That we like salty things and we like fatty things. And the fatty, salty combination, that's what makes French fries and onion rings and potato chips so attractive, that greasy, salty thing. But there's more to it. Do you know about casomorphins? Casein, C-A-S-E-I-N, is the milk protein. And when casein is digested, compounds come out of it that happen to be opiates. And we call them casein-derived, morphine-like compounds, casomorphins. They go to the brain and they attach to the very same receptors that heroin, morphine, Demerol, any narcotic attaches to. And here they are. This will not be on the test. But these are the casomorphins. And the most potent one is morphiceptin. It has about 1/10 the brain binding power compared to pure morphine. So it's not enough to make you drive funny, but it is enough to make you say, that was nice. I wonder if we have some left in the refrigerator. I'd like to have that tomorrow, and I don't think I could give that really up. I don't. Okay? So why is that there? Why would Mother Nature put a narcotic in a food? I'm going to argue this. If the baby calf did not like nursing, the baby calf says, Mom, I'm going to go wander in the woods. I'll come back Thursday. The calf's not going to do very well. Or have you ever looked at the face of a human baby nursing? They have tremendous intensity. And then they collapse into sleep. And we think, isn't that beautiful? The mother-infant bond is this wonderful thing. I hate to tell you, you just drugged the kid. So milk has protein and sugar and fat and hormones and various things in it, but it also has a little bit of feel-good that starts the baby looking at mother fondly. And now this is not a big problem because nature also has weaning. And so you might be the most drug-addicted breastfeeding baby, but weaning means you're not going to carry this into adulthood. Except humans are so darn creative. They figured, I can't have my mom's milk anymore, but somebody else will give me hers. And it doesn't have to be a human, and I can have a whole industry to give me my casomorphins for the rest of my life. And we act as if it's totally normal. Okay? Now, industry is well aware of this. And the dairy industry has been working with the US government for a long time to promote cheese addiction. Now that sounds strange, doesn't it? But I want to show you some slides that I got through the Freedom of Information Act from the United States government, where in year 2000 they launched a new effort that they called Triggering the Crave. Again, these are not my slides, these are government slides. They worked with Dairy Management, Inc., and they separated Americans into enhancers, who are people who just enhance their salad with a little sprinkle of cheese. They're not interested in those people. The other group is cravers. And a craver is a person who can eat a lot of it. A craver opens up the refrigerator and pulls the cheese off the block and stuffs it into their mouth. And that person can double their cheese intake or triple it. And so, again, these are not my slides. This is a US government program. What do we want to do? We want to trigger cheese craving. How are we going to do this? The government realized that if you just put commercials on TV, you can do better than that. What they did is they worked with Wendy's because if Wendy's makes a corporate decision, it affects every community in America. And so they signed a contract, which I can show you, with Wendy's to market the Cheddar Lovers Bacon Cheeseburger, and it sold 2.25 million pounds of cheese. And they then worked with Subway, which had 2 sandwiches with no cheese on it at all, and they fixed that. And they worked with Pizza Hut to put an entire pound of cheese on 1 serving. They worked with Taco Bell, so instead of coming through the drive-thru and saying, "Hi, welcome to Taco Bell," they would say, "Welcome to Taco Bell, would you like to try a quesadilla today?" These are all government programs designed to respond to federal law that says the government must market American agricultural programs whether they are healthy or not. And that's what's been happening. And back in 1909, Americans didn't eat much cheese, 3.8 pounds per person per year. But fast food chains and pizza restaurants drove that up. And as of 2014, we were almost 34. Actually, as of 2017, the average American eats 35 pounds of cheese every year. I'm not eating any, so someone's getting like 70, I guess. Okay, is this making sense? All right. Is this understandable? Does this fit your experience? Could this affect our health? This is Catherine. Catherine was from Louisiana. And Catherine was in the Air Force. She was an aerospace engineer, and she would design military bases. And she was one of the first people in Iraq in 2003. And when you are in a war zone and you're eating what the military gives you, you don't gain weight. And she was working very hard over there and very busy doing the things that people do. And pretty soon her tour of duty came to a conclusion, and she came back to the United States. And her friend said, "Catherine, welcome home. Let's eat." And so she started to dig into all the things that she had missed while she was overseas, especially cheese. She loved cheese in any kind of form, all kinds of stuff. And in fact, she loved cheese so much that one of her friends knew she liked those mac and cheese boxes, that she gave her, for her birthday, an entire case of mac and cheese. And for 48 days straight, Catherine ate mac and cheese dinners, ate the whole thing. She gained weight. But she also started to develop some abdominal pains. Her belly started to hurt. And it got worse and worse as time went on, and it would get especially bad with her menstrual cycle. It would kind of wax and wane, but overall it was getting worse. So the doctor did a laparoscopy where you look inside the abdomen with their little incision, and he said, "Here's what you got. You got endometriosis." Endometriosis is a condition where cells that are supposed to be inside your uterus are migrating out, and under the influence of estrogens are implanting and growing throughout the abdomen. And it's painful, and it can cause infertility, and the treatment is you're going to have a hysterectomy, Catherine. She said, "Well, let's try something else. I want to have a family if I can." And so they tried various medical treatments, and nothing was working for her. So finally she realized, I can't live with this pain anymore, and the doctor said surgery is your option. But as fate would have it, one of her friends said, sometimes people will change their diets to get their hormones in better balance. Cancer patients will often do this. And they get away from dairy and meat, and they do a completely plant-based diet, which tends to cause hormones to settle down quite a lot. So she said, I'll try it. Let's see what happens. And she did. She went 100% vegan, very low fat, very healthy. And very soon, she started to feel good. Her weight was coming down, her energy was better, her digestion was better, but more than that, her abdominal pains started to remit. And as time went on, it got better and better and better. And the doctor said, "Well, you're scheduled for a hysterectomy, but let's take a look." And the doctor did another laparoscopy. You make a little incision, and he puts in the scope, and he looks around and sews her up and sends her to the recovery room. And the doctor went out to the waiting room and said to her husband, this is really quite remarkable, her endometriosis, it's effectively gone. I haven't seen this, but it's really just gone. And her husband said, she's been feeling dramatically better. She went on a completely vegan diet. She's followed it very carefully. And week by week, she's felt better and better and better. And the doctor said, no. Foods don't cause endometriosis. And a diet change is never going to make it go away. There's only one explanation for this. This is a miracle. Miracle or not, she now has 2 kids. She's lost a lot of weight. Her 3rd child is going to be born in about 10 days or 2 weeks. And she's doing great. And she came to us and is now one of our Food for Life instructors and is teaching other people how they can take hold of their own biology. It's not perfect, but it beats the heck out of surgery if you can. Okay? So there's Catherine. Now, I was talking about hormones. And let me kind of go back to some basic biology. Cows don't make milk. No mammal makes milk until the animal is pregnant. I know this sounds obvious, but the animal is pregnant, and then the animal gives birth, and then the milk is produced for the offspring. You can't just bring a cow over and say, give me some milk, please. They have to be pregnant, and they give birth. And a pregnant animal makes estrogens. Now, there are a number of estrogens that get into the milk, and here they are. They're in the plasma, but there they are in the milk. They get concentrated, especially as the cow reaches term. It's only traces. It's not a lot. But researchers in Rochester, New York, went into a fertility clinic and looked at men. And some of the men ate relatively low amounts of cheese, and some ate relatively larger amounts of cheese. And they looked at their sperm counts, and they said, the men who eat a lot of cheese have lower sperm counts, worse sperm mortality, worse fertility. Could it be that those little traces of hormones that they're getting in the cheese could be affecting their fertility? I don't know. This was the hypothesis. So then researchers in California said, well, how about this? They looked at breast cancer patients. You've been treated for breast cancer, and your concern is that the cancer could come back or could kill you. And what they found was that if you compare, can you see this? If you compare the people on the right, that's the red line, those are women who consume more than one or more servings of fatty dairy products. I'm talking cheese and butter. Compared to the green line on the left, that's less than half a serving a day. And how high up you are is your risk of dying of your cancer. The women who eat the most fatty dairy products have a 49% higher mortality compared to the others. So again, the researchers said, they asked this question, could it be that these tiny traces that are in the milk get concentrated as you turn milk into cheese, because the hormones follow the fat, and that if I eat 35 pounds of it every year, could those traces actually have a meaningful effect on my biology? And the answer is we don't know. But all of the data are making us wonder, should I be giving this to my 6-year-old son? Or my 14-year-old daughter? Or my parents? Or anybody? Or am I giving them hormones, really? And by the way, if you go online and you look at hormones in food, they'll talk about soy products. Have you heard this? Soy has something like estrogens. By the way, the opposite is true. Soy has isoflavones. They are not estrogens. And women who consume the most soy milk, tofu, have about 30% lower risk of developing breast cancer. And breast cancer patients who eat the most soy products have about a 30% lower risk of dying of their cancer. So I'm not saying this is not the soy cheerleading club, but soy products don't cause cancer. If anything, they help prevent it. Okay, so what about asthma? This is Chad. Chad lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He's right on the water, and he was a very athletic kid. Except he couldn't get through a ball game without, he had asthma, terrible asthma. He would start wheezing, and he had terrible allergies. And he was hospitalized repeatedly for asthma. So if he would exercise, it would trigger it. If he would go to a friend's house and they had a dog or a cat and he'd pet the cat and they'd start wheezing, or he had seasonal allergies, it would all make his asthma worse. When he was about 18 years old, somebody said, Chad, haven't you heard about dairy? So like, what? Dairy proteins trigger respiratory conditions for some people, not everybody, but like kids who have ear infections, people with sinus issues, a lot of times you get them away from dairy, they do better. You say, okay, let me give it a try. Within 3 months, asthma gone, allergies gone, everything's gone. So he now works with Ruby. Do you know Ruby, the online cooking thing? And he set up a totally plant-based training course with Ruby so that maybe you can get away from asthma. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is the magic cure for everything. But I am suggesting that maybe dairy could have something to do with asthma. So actually, let's go look it up. Could dairy products contribute to asthma? Let's Google this, shall we? I'm going to Google this, asthma dairy, and let's see what comes up. Okay, the very first thing is from the National Asthma Council, Australia. And they tackle this right up front on their website. Dairy foods have often been suggested as a common trigger for asthma. But there's little scientific evidence to support this myth. Unfortunately, most Australians are missing out on the health benefits that come from consuming milk, cheese, and yogurt, as they don't include enough dairy food. It's starting to smell funny, isn't it? Okay, let's go back. I want to click on their sponsor list. Let me see who sponsors them. Okay, there's Dairy Australia and 5 drug companies. So the dairy people make money if you eat dairy products. The other 5 make money if you have asthma. I don't see anybody on that list who wants you not to have dairy and not to have asthma. And I am sorry to tell you that you will see this with good organizations. The American Diabetes Association. You go to their meeting, and they are sponsored by all kinds of commercial entities. The American Heart Association has an industry nutrition advisory panel where you can pay $10,000 every single year if you are McDonald's or the Beef Checkoff or Coca-Cola, and they will give you special access to their nutritional policy advisors. Corruption has worked its way into the health industry, and which is why now, when people are marching for breast cancer in October, it's all, there's a cure somewhere, give me money and I'll go find it, not what can I do now with foods. And my argument is not that we want to change, we don't want to stop important research from being done in a good and ethical way. But what we do want to do is make sure that we are working to put to use the things that we can do now, that do no harm and have only good effects. So we have to work together to explore that. When I wrote this book called The Cheese Trap, when I write about foods, I write as a doctor. And it's all about science. But I have to say, I found myself being surprised as I was looking at the humane issues. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share with you a few things about that. Because a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to eat meat because what they do in a slaughterhouse is just creepy. But for dairy, you don't kill the cows, so how bad can it be? Well, let me walk you through this. These are some slides from the United Nations, which promotes dairy farming worldwide. And they make slides like this to help people in low literacy areas to learn how to do it. So I want to show you some United Nations slides. This is how to impregnate your cow. Remember, you've got to get the cow pregnant, because otherwise you've got no milk. So the way the farmer does this is puts a glove on his left hand, goes up to the shoulder. That hand goes into the rectum of the cow, and through the rectal wall you can feel her uterus and hold it steady. And with your right hand, you take what looks like a knitting needle and push it through the cervix, and you insert semen that you've extracted from a bull. And these are not volunteers. She will not fight back because she's chained up and she can't stop you from doing this. This is the way it looks in Wisconsin and everywhere else. And then you write on her flank the date, because a cow's pregnancy is about 9 months, similar to in length to a human pregnancy. And so 9 months later, she gives birth. And the calf is there in the hay, blinking his eyes or her eyes and looking up at mom. And she looks at her calf, and this wasn't her idea to get pregnant, but she was, and she's now given birth. And she starts to bond, and the baby bonds with her, and the farmer thinks, isn't that pretty? Isn't that nice? Except, if you leave them together and the calf takes the mother's milk, my dairy is not going to work very well. So the farmer has an implement that solves this problem. It's called a wheelbarrow. And the farmer will come up and pick the calf up and put the calf in a wheelbarrow and walk away. Now, there's no bond stronger than that between a mother and her baby. And that doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what species you are. The cow will follow and push and say, "Excuse me, I believe that's my baby you're taking away." And pretty soon the gate will slam in her face and she will stand there as the calf goes out of vision, and she will cry all night long for her baby. And the calf will be stuck in a little hutch. And if the calf is a male, as you know, he's not going to live. He's going to become a veal calf. And there's no civilized person who eats veal because they know the conditions that they're raised under. But if she is a female, she still can't be with a mother. She'll be raised on a milk replacer until she is old enough to be impregnated. And I got this from Newburyport, Massachusetts, in the newspaper. I saw this. Strange noises coming from the high road near Sunshine Dairy Farm Monday night and into yesterday morning prompted local police to alert residents that there's nothing spooky or scary going on. According to Newbury Police Sergeant Patty Fisher, the noises are coming from mother cows who are lamenting the separation from their calves. It happens every year at the same time. And the females have horns. Well, that's going to hurt. They're going to hurt each other. They're going to hurt you. So they are cut off with a process called dehorning. Or if you get them early enough, it's called disbudding. You just scrape them right out of the skull, and you don't bother with anesthesia. And any veterinarian who has done this will never do it again. That's what it is. Now, then at around age 4, farmers track how much feed it takes to produce a unit of milk. And by about age 4, dear cow, you're not really keeping up. I'm not getting enough milk out of you for the feed that I'm putting in. So if I kill you and put your daughter in your place, she's going to do me better. And so 200,000 cows are killed every month, and they're replaced with their offspring, who are then impregnated, and their infants are taken away. And it's just a cycle of running little calves up into the dairy industry and then killing them off. And it's a meat industry that requires dairy production before you're slaughtered. So, that's kind of creepy, isn't it? Is there something, and the reason I share this is if a person's just trying to get their cholesterol down, sometimes they'll vary their diet a little bit and say it doesn't really matter, but once you get these images in your mind of what actually caused this to be produced, sometimes it's a good motivator and not an altogether bad thing to recall. So, can I eat something instead? Can I? Can I? Are there things to eat without cheese? Well, sure. Here's my salad. I put feta on it. No, I'm not putting feta. I could put avocado on it. That has a nice mouthfeel. Or here's grilled cheese. When I was growing up in Fargo, anybody been to Fargo? Yeah. See the movie? That's my mom in that movie. We knew about grilled cheese. I never heard of this humus. What is this stuff? Well, now in Fargo, last time I was there, you didn't have to have grilled cheese. They got things to put in a sandwich. I can have this pizza, but right next to it in the freezer case, they've got that pizza with no cheese at all. And so you can make a perfectly good vegan pizza that everyone's going to love. And your secret weapon is nutritional yeast. Have you used this stuff? Nutritional yeast. It's a funny thing, isn't it? It started out as a thing for bodybuilders because it's high in protein, it has no fat. And so they sell it in the supplement aisle. But through some quirk of nature, it just tastes like cheese. So you throw it into a sauce or on a pizza, and it gives us this kind of cheesy flavor. Okay, I can make ricotta, but did you ever make a tofu ricotta? For those of you who cook, you know this is true. You serve this to your non-vegan friends, and they will swear to you that this was just like regular ricotta. It works perfectly fine. So there's all kinds of replacements. They work perfectly great. And then when you hear people talking about what can we do about the environment, you're the one who says, I'm not contributing to the global climate change from farms. And when people say this is a world that doesn't have such humane food production, you've taken a great step. But then your coronary arteries are thanking you at the same time. Now, I do research studies, and we bring people onto vegan diets, and they often say, I feel so great. My diabetes is better. I've lost weight. my cholesterol's down, but sometimes I really miss cheese. And not just cheese. They might miss junk foods of all kinds. And so they know what it does to them, and they know how getting away from it's like a really good move. But they feel stuck. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where people will say, I do feel good, but I still miss these things. Like a smoker, no, I'm glad I quit, but I still miss it. Here's the truth. If you miss these things, what you are really looking for is dopamine. Do you know dopamine? Dopamine is the brain's reward chemical. It's produced in the brain, and it's there actually to reward you for breeding or for finding a good food source. And it tells you, do that again, it's good for the species. So the dopamine is the little black dots in those vesicles, and then when a person finds a receptive mate or a good food source, those little black dots go out from one neuron to the next, and that creates this sense of pleasure that makes you do this again and again. But the problem is that people discovered that alcohol, you ferment grain, alcohol triggers dopamine release. That's the reason it's popular. Wine does that, tobacco does that, caffeine does it to a degree, heroin does that, all drugs of abuse. The reason they're popular is they give you dopamine. That's the whole deal. So that's why I want junk food, because junk food gives you more dopamine. Strawberry gives you a little bit, Velveeta gives you a whole lot more. All right, so what is the answer? And here I have an answer for you. There are helpful dopamine sources. The first is intimacy. So when people are with friends, whether it's your family or an AA support group or whatever, when you're with other people, you get just a little bit of dopamine. Brain scans show this. And as people are talking about themselves in the company of others, they actually get a little bit of that reward chemical that helps them. The other thing is physical activity. When people exercise, that gives them dopamine too. But there's a third source. It's true. Music triggers dopamine. Thank you. Music, as it turns out, triggers the release of dopamine. And researchers at McGill University have put people in brain scanners and played music to them. It can be sad music, it can be happy music, but so long as you like it, it will trigger a little bit of dopamine. And in a labor and delivery suite, researchers tested how much, or they asked women to rate how much pain they were in, and then they gave them a massage and found that massage reduces pain a little bit, and then they allowed them no massage, but constant music, and it turns out that music is about the same as getting massaged constantly. It won't take the place of medications for a person who needs it, but it has this nice painkiller effect. So the question is, what can music do? I'm going to compare Ludwig van Beethoven to Velveeta. If you look at calories, fat, cholesterol, or sodium, Beethoven has them beat all the way around. In fact, I've taken every symphony. There's no cholesterol in any of the Beethoven symphonies whatsoever. None. Okay, now, how strong is Beethoven? Can he compete with heroin? I'm going to say no. And an apple isn't going to be able to compete with M&Ms really, because technology has found ways to really get our dopamine going. Even so, if you are alone versus you're surrounded by friends and you're getting their social support, or if you are completely sedentary versus you're physically active, or if you're tired versus being well rested, and if you are living in just silence and you have no beauty in your life, versus a person who has music and arts and things. Also, if you have no humor versus having fun, one of these categories gives you lots of dopamine on a regular basis. And is this not true? If a person is all alone, doesn't chocolate call their name more strongly? Chocolate was here, where were you? You know what I'm talking about. So none of these things make food addictions go away, but on the other hand, you have power when we put these to work. So when I was a kid growing up in Fargo, my parents felt that any civilized person should be playing music. And so I was sort of chained to my chair, and I played the piano, and I played the cello. And then when the Beatles came in, I decided the guitar was a cool thing. So in medical school, I was a medical student by day and a musician by night. And so I have now decided that we need lots of dopamine, and I would like to share with you 2 videos that my current musical group, which is called Carbon Works, just released. And my hope is that you'll carry a little bit of dopamine with you. And they both relate to animals a little bit. The first of these will show some animal images of animals who are kind of getting out of a bad thing, and the second one shows my favorite little samurai warrior who has decided that she is going to free the animals. So if you don't mind, I'm going to show you a little bit.
There's a time in early hours when we're all just shades of gray, walking alone with your demons in tow, and memories that won't go away. And if I
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have time for a couple of questions if there are any, and then, anyway, yes, please.
Would you say a few words about cheese curds?
What words could a person say about cheese curds, really?
Are they good, bad, worse?
Yeah, they're not so good. Yeah, exactly. Yes, please. Okay. All right, everybody hear that? So what do? Your family doesn't listen to you, or your family's going in the wrong direction, and you're concerned about their not so good health, and you're probably even more concerned about where things are going for them in the future. What can you do? What can you do? My own feeling is that it's useful to provide information, and you're concerned you don't want to be a nudge, and that's understandable. But the beauty of it is, I think, that you can use fun now. Because as opposed to wagging our finger, there are cool movies, DVDs, products that you can share. There are websites, there are books. And here's my trick. My mother had a high cholesterol level, and I would give her all these books. And do you know how you can tell when a book hasn't been opened? It doesn't look like that bad. You know, I've written like 18 books. And been funded by the National Institutes of Health. My own mother won't listen to me. What's this about? So here's my trick. Here's what you do. You take a book that you think is useful, that your family member will profit from, and you put a Post-it note, like on page 120, whatever you think will grab them, and then you put another Post-it note on a recipe and maybe 2 or 3 others, and you write on the front, in another Post-it note, you write, "Dear Mom, I thought of you when I got to page 120, don't you think?" And she can't resist opening it up. And then you give her a copy of Forks Over Knives. And then you put a Post-it note on. Or, Eating You Alive, or What the Health. There's these great movies out there. But you put a Post-it, don't just like give it shrink wrap. Put a note on there saying, at 1 hour and 10 minutes into it, I thought exactly of what you were telling me. And I can't thank you enough for what you said. She's going to rip it out of the plastic and put it in, and she's going to watch the first 110, hour and 10. So that's what I do. Good luck. They're lucky to have you. So, okay, yes, please.
Are there some cheeses that are more addicting than others?
Oh, great question. Are there some cheeses that are more addicting than others? Yes. Well, the vegan cheeses are very tasty, but they don't have casomorphins in them. If you look at the goat cheeses, they have a slightly higher saturated fat content, so that makes them more buttery. People don't pick them because they're healthy or because, isn't it nice the animals are on some pasture. Those animals are killed just like the cows, but it's a little more buttery, so I think sometimes people get hooked on those a little bit more. Okay, time for a couple more. Yes, please.
How are you affected by the medical community?
Well, as I was, the medical community up until now has been sort of indifferent to this because they're not really well trained in it, but that's changing. July 28th and 29th, this year, we're having the 5th International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. And we have a room filled with physicians and medical students who are really keen on this. And when I opened the Barnard Medical Center last year, and I asked doctors, what we do, by the way, is if you come in, you got diabetes, the doctor will say you got diabetes, and we'll use medications if you need it. However, we explain to the patient that diabetes is not caused by a metformin deficiency. So any more than high blood pressure is caused by a lisinopril deficiency or high cholesterol is caused by a Lipitor deficiency. No, those are drugs that are used to counteract the effects of the cheeseburgers people are eating. So we have dietitians who are there and work with the patients, and I have classes all week that the patients can attend for free for as long as they want. So the doctors love it because they don't have to be the teacher. They just have to know where the teacher, and they're surrounded by the structure that helps them. So anyway, the point being, when we opened this, I started getting flooded with applications from doctors wanting to work there and to do this kind of stuff. So I'm very optimistic. And as I mentioned, the AMA has passed actually now a number of resolutions promoting healthy diets and specifically plant-based menu items for schools. They did that a couple of years ago, and now for hospitals. So it's really just a question of, it is true that doctors get paid for doing surgical procedures and all that kind of stuff. And it's true that there's a lot of people making money from bad products. But there are far more worried parents, worried teachers, concerned principals, people who are seeing the childhood obesity epidemic saying, I got to change this. But our problem is, even though there's far more of us, we are all silent. So to the extent that when people speak up, and they talk to their doctor about what they expect, and doctors themselves speak up, and we share things around like we were talking about, make a little bit of noise, and when you pick up the phone and tell your members of Congress about, I don't want bad stuff subsidized anymore. I want healthy things to be promoted. The more noise that we make in a good way, I am convinced that we're going to be just like where we were with tobacco. A generation ago, do we ban cigarettes or not? And in my hospital, we banned it and we weren't sure if we could get away with it. 2 weeks later, we knew we were right. Now, that's where we are with food. We're going to get there, and people will look back on these times when we served kids pepperoni pizza in school and bacon stuff. We're going to look back on these times and we're going to realize that was so old-fashioned. You know, isn't it cool now that we're all vegan? So let's see if we can make that happen. Let me stop at that point. Forgive me for running out of here. I've got a flight that I've got to go take. But thank you very much for including me. Good luck to all of you. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.